2022 Genesis G70. This is refresh for this year, and this particular one has the 3.3 liter twin turbo V6. Today we're gonna have some fun with it. Now for 2022, Genesis refreshed this G70, but if you look at the outside, you would never guess. It looks like a full redesign, similar to how the Lexus IS for 2021 got a refresh. It's really based off the existing or outgoing model, you can say. This new G70 has the updated Genesis headlights and taillights that are split LED. And what's interesting about these particular headlights is I was expecting a quad beam setup, but it's only a bi or a two beam setup, one on the top, one on the bottom. You have the large Pentagon grille, kind of like what Acura does, except it's a lot taller and more Superman-like. And one of my favorite design differences with this new model compared to the last model is the gills. The gills on the last model just look cheap, tacked on. They look like hockey sticks, chrome hockey sticks plastered to the side of the vehicle. Now instead we have some really attractive vents at the bottom of the panel instead of right smack dab in the middle. Of course, they're functional as well. They look really good. And going to the back, I just don't know how I feel about the oval rear exhaust enclosures. They're not real exhaust enclosures. They are definitely fake. If you look closely to the active exhaust, yes, we do have active exhaust here that's tied to the drive modes. They're like square tips. So you have like quad square tip exhaust inside of a dual oval exhaust enclosure. It looks a little bit Bentley-like, and it doesn't do this Genesis G70 any favors. I know Genesis, your logo looks Bentley, but your tailpipes don't need to look like Bentley because Bentley's tailpipes typically don't look that great. Now, when you're getting on the interior, the first thing you'll notice is the really beautiful quilting on the doors as well as the seats. The seats are very comfortable, and you do have adjustive side bolstering on the sport model, which I really appreciate in a high horsepower car like this. There is no rotary dial in here to mess with the infotainment like you have on the newer GV70 and GV80, and I'm perfectly okay with that. I felt like that was a completely unnecessary step, and instead we have just a touchscreen, which is much closer to you compared to the crossovers in the Genesis lineup, and it's very easy to interact with. But although the exterior design definitely looks like a modern piece of Genesis technology and art, this interior cluster in the middle definitely does not go that far. You have like this reflective aluminum plastic around the dials that looks overdone. You have a smattering of buttons and dials here which feels out of place, and it just looks disjointed. Then you also have this fish eye, or fish scale I should say, trim in here, which does not look that premium. Lexicon sound system always sounds good on the Genesis models, that's no exception here. Steering wheel is good. It doesn't feel that premium, I'm not gonna lie, but it does feel good in my hands, but it really doesn't feel that much different than a high-end Sonata steering wheel. The materials on the dash are soft touch and real nice with the stitching as well, but it's accented by this aluminum color that is way too abundant in this vehicle. And lastly, about the materials on the interior, the headliner is exquisite, very high quality, and it just looks really good surrounding the large panoramic sun. Well, it's not really panoramic, it's like more of a really big standard sunroof that's so big that you could argue that's a panoramic roof. Anyways, it's really, really nice sunroof in here. And the detail on the seats definitely extends to the back. Unfortunately, the legroom back there is very, very minimal, which kind of compares to the Lexus IS a little bit, in that if you're sitting behind someone 6 feet or taller, I didn't even have room for my flip-flops underneath the seat. I had to be barefoot for my feet to feel somewhat comfortable. So if you're an adult, I really don't recommend sitting back there if you're taller than like 5'10". And there's only one USB plug-in in the back seat, which I feel like is a head scratcher. And there's a good amount of space in the trunk, and you even get a spare tire. No, it's not like a full-size spare tire or anything like that, but the fact that we get it is a very good thing. Now, how this vehicle drives out on the streets Well, it's very quiet, as you would expect a luxury car to be. You do feel quite a bit of the imperfections of the road, which is not a bad thing because it's a sports sedan, so you want to be a little bit more in tune with the road. But even as I'm sitting here in comfort mode, I still feel a little bit more of the road than I would like. And speaking of the driving modes, you have this dial here, which feels pretty cheap. It has a really like cheap spring-loaded resistance to it. It doesn't feel, it feels out of place. I'll just say that. And the driving modes are aggressive, just like they are in any other Hyundai product. As you get into Sport Plus mode, it downshifts twice and it just wants to take off like a rocket, which we'll get into the interstate in a little bit so we can actually put this twin turbo V6 to the test. But in the meantime, back to comfort mode, and we're gonna come up to some stoplights here, and I feel like this is a great time to talk about the brakes here. We have Brembo brakes on every single wheel on this vehicle. The problem is that it is not a very predictive brake pedal, and this is something that plagued my experience with the GV80 and the GV70. I was hoping here in a more sedan, a more sporty vehicle, that would be eradicated. Unfortunately, you still feel that transmission, that 8-speed transmission downshifting, cutting in to the predictability of the brake feel as you come to a stop, and it's just a very unsettling experience, and I'm not happy with the brakes, the brake feel, I should say, in this G70, because it does have excellent stopping power, and I would much rather have a more linear and predictive stopping experience in a luxury car instead of maximum braking force, which I rarely ever, actually I haven't used once in this vehicle because I don't want whiplash. So we're going to get on the freeway here a little bit. I'm going to slow down so we can get a little bit of space between us and it looks like maybe a Nissan Rogue in front of us. But what I'm going to do is flip it in sport mode, not Sport Plus, because I want traction control on. I don't want to die here. And we're going to roll onto the gas. And there's that 365 horsepower. And there's 80. So definitely tons of power in order to get up to speed, and almost too much power because the Rogue and its CVT and 4-cylinder takes about a quarter century to get up to speed. But yeah, this thing is a rocket ship. I was a little disappointed that the G70, when it was announced, this 2022 refresh, that it was not going to get the 3.5-liter twin turbo V6. It ported over the 3.3-liter twin turbo V6 with 365 horsepower and 376 pound-feet of torque instead of the extra 390 horsepower like the 3.5-liter twin turbo has. I think Genesis did the right thing here, as long as it keeps costs down for them and costs down for the consumer. You don't really need that extra 25 or so horsepower from the larger displacement twin turbo V6 because this thing is really powerful. I'm going 77 in sport mode, just gonna hammer. Real responsive. And there's 95 like in an instant. It is very, I'm gonna go back into comfort mode here. It's very fast, very responsive, and it is very satisfying. But that's the first and only time that I've used the full power of this twin turbo V6 is out here on the freeway. It's in daily traffic. Getting the 2-liter turbo is probably more than adequate for most people, the base engine in this vehicle. Now the front interior cockpit here is pretty spacey compared to the back seat, of course. It reminds me a little bit more of the Acura TLX than the more cramped front room and the front leg room and the Lexus IS, for example. But I feel like it's time to kind of summarize the 2022 G70. What a rocket ship of a sport luxury sedan. And I feel like it's very competitive with the Lexus IS and the Acura TLX, especially the Type S Acura TLX. I feel like it doesn't have quite the handling chops of the TLX Type S or the Lexus IS 350. I'm not going to compare this to the Lexus IS 500 for obvious reasons. But this vehicle comes in around 51, 52, and that's getting pretty close to the Acura TLX Type S. And you can get this vehicle in all-wheel drive too, like the Acura is. And I think the looks are pretty good. I don't think they're as good as the Lexus IS 350 F Sport. I don't think they're quite as good as Acura TLX Type S, but I would say it's competitive with them, and that's very important. Driving mechanics, it feels more of like a grand touring luxury vehicle than it does like a sports sedan or really high performance, high handling sports sedan. Even though this has adaptive dampers to it, even though it has tons of power, it still feels more of like a grand tourer when I'm driving this, with its a little bit slower to turn in feeling. It doesn't mean that it's a bad handling vehicle. It handles really, really well. It just feels more of like a gentleman's car compared to the more sporty, more aggressive looking TLX and Lexus IS. And there's very few things I dislike about this Genesis G70. Go figure, it's a really, really good car. The brakes are not very predictive and linear, and that's unacceptable in a luxury vehicle in my opinion. And the interior doesn't have quite the same impression as the GV70 or the GV80 has had on me. This feels a little clunky up here, a little overdone, too much plastic, too much going on in the center stack, and the silver trim on the doors around the vents as well just doesn't have that same sort of luxurious feeling like I've had in other Genesis products. And there's another Korean vehicle that has a very similar soul to this, and that's the Kia Stinger, which I think the Kia Stinger looks better than this. Build quality is not going to be the same. The fit and finish is not going to be the same. So maybe if you're looking at a Kia Stinger and you can't find a good deal, maybe consider looking at this really good Genesis G70. It is a ton of power, a ton of luxury, a really good driving vehicle if you can get over the a little bit dated interior and the less than satisfactory brake feel. Anyways guys, I'm gonna end it there. I can't wait to see what your thoughts on the Genesis G70 are down below. There's not a lot to dislike about the vehicle. There's a whole lot to like about it, especially when you put your foot down in town. The amount of instant power and torque is just silly, and you're never going to use it unless you just want to, I don't know, laugh like a little schoolgirl and hit the brakes, because it's just a ton of power. Anyways, I need to end this video before I get into too much trouble with the morning traffic and twin turbo V6 on tap. Anyways guys, I'm gonna end it there. Smash the like button if you enjoyed today's video with the Genesis G70. Subscribe for more Genesis news and reviews. As always, peace out. Should we just do one more acceleration run here? Oh, here we go. A little squirrely, too much, it's already past the speed limit. Maybe get the 2-liter turbo.